Hi everyone, I'm Jessica, co-founder of EasyUniPrep, and today I want to share my personal journey of how I got into Oxford University to study law, whilst also sharing some tips along the way which might be useful for anyone watching and thinking of applying to Oxbridge. When I was applying, I realised very quickly that the university application process isn't really fair. Some students have access to extra resources, tailored guidance, or family members who've been through it before, while others, like me, are figuring it all out for the first time, with little to few resources at hand. That's one of the reasons I decided to create EasyUniPrep, soon after graduating from Oxford. I wanted to share the things I learned through my own application and my time at Oxford, so that the advice and resources I found helpful are available to everyone, no matter their background. With this, I hope to make the application process easier for others coming up after me. We also share so many free resources throughout the year. So for example, right now we have a free guide called Master the UCAS application process, which I'll put in the link in the description below. We have online courses on the personal statement, university interview, and finding work experience. And we also review personal statements and all the materials you apply to work experience with, such as CVs and cover letters. Our mission is to help you level up your uni prep. So just a little bit about me. I come from a state school background. I was on free school meals, grew up on a council estate, and I'm the first in my family to go to university. I didn't come from a privileged background, but I always loved to study. So once I started thinking about university and making my applications, I knew I wanted to aim for Oxford. And if I could achieve this, you can too. So let's get started with things that I did that helped me get my offer to study at Oxford University. It wasn't just applying in year 13 that was important. Getting that offer was an accumulation of things that I had achieved or done many years before even making my application. And I think it was so many different factors that were the reason for my success. And I'll be going through each one in order. So let's start with GCSEs. Your GCSE results are the first proper benchmark universities have of your academic ability. They aren't the only thing that matters, but they are really important, and they do form part of your application. So I got 2 9s, 1 8, and the rest were A stars. And having such high results was beneficial when making my university applications. So I studied English literature, English language, maths, the 3 sciences, so chemistry, biology, and physics, and statistics, French, history, and psychology. I also actually ended up receiving a scholarship called the Colin Pond Scholarship because my GCSE results were some of the highest in my borough. I'll be posting a separate video soon on how I achieved these grades and my GCSE revision tips. However, all the factors that I'll be going through that help me contribute to me getting an offer from Oxford University do not stand alone. It was them combined together that helped me get that offer. This means that you could have fantastic GCSE results in practice, but still not get an offer because you were lacking in another aspect. Or, conversely, you could get lower GCSE results, but still receive an offer from Oxford University or Oxbridge in general because you had a fantastic personal statement and work experience, for example. So everything is looked at holistically by universities, including Oxbridge, and this was the case for me. My GCSE results alone were not the reason I was successful. So here I have an image of some examples of my revision materials for my GCSEs, which included flashcards, mind maps, and revision folders. For my A-levels, I went on to study maths, history, and psychology. I picked these subjects because they were subjects I genuinely enjoyed, but that I was also good at. I think the two go hand in hand. If you pick something you enjoy, you are more likely to do well because you are more likely to invest time in studying it because it doesn't feel like a chore. I also had more freedom when picking my A-levels because I knew that the universities I was applying to, including Oxford, They didn't need me to take specific A levels in order to apply for law. So it may be different for anyone else applying for something different, like medicine, where there might be more restrictions on the kind of A levels you can pick. So next up is work experience. This is something that I'd highly recommend you not to leave until year 13 because it takes time to apply and you also might face rejections and the opportunities can be really competitive. So in terms of what I did for work experience, I applied to organisations really early on, such as the Social Mobility Foundation, for example, which helped me secure work experience as they would then provide those opportunities. So just to give an example, I got a work experience opportunity at Freshfields, which is a law firm in London, through the Social Mobility Foundation. They also offer many other resources. So they offer workshops on writing your personal statement, which are very useful. And they also pair you up with mentors who can give you advice. So there are many benefits to applying to these kinds of organisations like SMF. They also tend to continue supporting you throughout university and beyond, so that's really useful. Many of these programs have eligibility requirements though, so you need to check them carefully before making any applications. So I think SMF only accepts applications from state school students, so that's something that you might want to check. I also took advantage of my school networks. So, for example, I secured a mini pupillage, essentially where I shadowed a barrister in court, as a result of my school's support. So that's a work experience opportunity that I got through my school. I also attended university programs like Warwick's masterclasses. Work experience in general really helped me explore different careers, and it consolidated the fact that I really wanted to study law at university because it was a career I was interested in going into. And it also at the same time gave me real material to use in my personal statement. There are also opportunities which you don't even need to apply for. So there's Forage, where you can get online work experience opportunities. And also, if you're interested in law, a really good tip is that you can attend court hearings and sit in the public gallery. That doesn't require any applications, and it's usually permitted. And that's something that I did, and you can easily put that in your personal statement because it shows that you've been exploring law in your free time. So, if you need help with finding work experience, we do have an online course on finding work experience with so many links, and they're organised by work experience type and also course interest. So, another tip would be it is also important to make the most of your work experience. So, that could be things like engaging with the tasks that you're given, networking with people that you're working with, and also logging your tasks so that you can include them later in your personal statement. So, just in case you're interested, we do also have a course called Maximising Work Experience Opportunities, which goes into depth on how to make the most of any experience you're given. So, in my case, I made sure to make a note of everything that I did every day of my work experience in a very structured way. And that really helped me so much later on when it came to writing my personal statement, as I had all the specific details of every single task I'd completed, and then I could really easily integrate all of that into my personal statement. It might have been much harder if I hadn't logged that because some of these work experiences I did many years ago, I probably would have forgotten about everything that I did unless I actually made a note of it as I was going through my work experience. So, tip number 3, applying to summer schools was so crucial for my university application. So I attended the Unique Summer School. It's held at Oxford University. And I actually stayed at Lincoln College, which ended up being the college I applied to and studied at Oxford University. So you can see how important summer schools are just by that. I was able to experience a week of university law lectures, classes, and just wider university learning and life. I was able to explore the college and actually other colleges as well, and lots of uni facilities like libraries. And I also ended up including this experience in my personal statement. It really helped me portray my interest in law in a really authentic way, as I had actually experienced studying it during the course of my summer school. Summer schools give you authentic experiences to talk about in your application. They also let you try out university life and can confirm whether a course or university are right for you, which is obviously very important when you are deciding what universities and courses to apply to. So I really enjoyed my experience at the summer school, and I ended up really understanding what studying law at Oxford would be like because they actually introduced us to concepts which I ended up studying during the course of my degree. So that was a fantastic experience, and it confirmed me that I really wanted to study law at Oxford University. I was able to learn about the course content during the course of that summer school, and then that helped me as a result to engage with specific modules that I would be learning when I was writing my personal statement. So, talking about specific modules that I was interested in a law course. And I think that was so useful because it showed I had a really good understanding of the course and what to expect because I had done my research. And I think that was a key element as to why my personal statement was successful in the end. So it's also important to research and explore your course beyond the classroom. So for me, one of the things I did in order to learn a little bit more about law was I read What About Law by Catherine Barnard. And that really gave me insight into the legal system because obviously I didn't actually study law at A level. So I didn't really know much about it. I just knew I had kind of the skills that would make me potentially a good lawyer and enjoy studying law. So, reading that book, I was able to sort of learn a bit more about law and what it entailed. And I included some of the intellectual debates that I encountered whilst reading the book later in my personal statement. So, that also gave me content as a result for my statement. I also just more generally read Letters to a Law Student by Nicholas McBride. Whether it's books, blogs, podcasts, or YouTube channels, essentially, universities want to see that your interest in the course goes deeper than just what you've ended up learning at school, and that you've been exploring the course that you're going to be applying for in your free time. So, next is entry tests. For law at Oxford, I had to sit the LNAT, which is very different from school exams, which is usually the case with entry tests. So, entry tests are essentially sort of course or university specific tests outside of the exams that you sit for your A levels that also form part of your application. My advice would be to check early on whether your course has an entry test and prepare well in advance. You also need to make sure you book any required entry tests by the given deadline. So, in my case with the LNAT, it wasn't something that was taught to me, so I had to sort of teach myself how to perform well during the LNAT. So, I practiced with sample questions on the LNAT website. And I also used the book that I purchased on Amazon called Mastering the National Admissions Test for Law by Mark Shepard. I would really recommend using official or up to date resources when making your revision. You can always just check on Amazon for the latest helpful books, which you can use to prepare. So, there is also the personal statement. And I think there's so much emphasis on the personal statement, but from my own experience, it is not the most important thing by itself when it comes to your university application. It is important, it's a big part of the application, but it's also combined with everything I have just mentioned. Because if you think about it, what is the personal statement? It's an accumulation of everything we have spoken about. Your work experience, summer school, extra research you've done into the chosen course. These are all things which actually make up the content of your personal statement. So if you don't have these key elements, the personal statement just won't come together, it won't be effective, and it won't be successful. From my own experience writing my personal statement, I learned that you need to ensure you are not being descriptive, but rather expanding on what you gain from every experience you choose to include within your statement. And then crucially, always connecting back to the course and why that experience or research or whatever it is would make you a good candidate for the course, a great candidate at that. So, one of my favourite tips for the personal statement is to create a circular narrative. So, weaving a thread throughout your statement so it reads like a story rather than just a list of activities or things that you've done. So, perhaps you can start with a certain point and then bring it back to that point right at the end of the statement. I think that's still applicable, even though the new UCAS personal statement is now 3 questions instead of just one sort of block of writing. It is also so important, I think it's actually really crucial, to ensure that you have at least one person review and provide feedback on your personal statement, because they'll often catch something that you've completely missed. So for me, that person was my teacher. My first draft of my personal statement was completely different from my final draft, which just goes to show how important getting a review of your statement is. I actually have a video on the new UCAS personal statement format that you might want to check out, and it goes into way more depth in what to actually include and expect within your personal statement. So finally, another really important and quite unique stage of the Oxford application process is the interview. A lot of people assume that the interview is going to be entirely about your personal statement, but actually in my case, I wasn't asked a single question about my personal statement, even though I prepared for that. Instead, what happened with me was that I was given a legal case to read about 20 minutes before my interview, and then the interview focused entirely on that. So essentially, they were asking me questions about what I'd read. I found that the tutors that are interviewing you aren't actually testing whether you already know the law, because in my case, I hadn't even studied law at A level. Instead, what they want to see is how you think. I think the key point here is that they're assessing whether you would thrive in Oxford's tutorial system, which is so unique to Oxford and Cambridge, where the focus is on reasoning, discussion, and independent thought. For me, I think the key to my success and doing well was staying calm. I didn't put pressure on myself to immediately give the right answer, in quotation marks, right, because there really isn't one. Instead, I focused on explaining my thought process. So, how I approached the text I had read beforehand, what arguments I could see, and how I came to my conclusions when answering their questions. I think that shift in mindset from trying to be perfect to showing how I think and how I come to my answers and my thought process, that made a huge difference. That was actually what the tutors wanted to see. Finally, one unique part of your university application when applying to either Cambridge or Oxford University is that you need to also choose a college. Although you can always make an open application where you then get assigned to a random college. I chose to apply to Lincoln specifically because of my summer school experience there. I loved the college and knew that that was the college I wanted to study at if I received an offer from the university. I have a video on how to choose your college that's out right now. And it goes into more depth on how to make a decision relating to which college to apply for. So, my final advice to round this all off. The first thing is to start early. Use all opportunities available to you and start making those applications way ahead of year 13 because there's just not enough time in year 13 to start doing all of that, making applications to work experience and balancing your studies and also writing your personal statement. So if you could get ahead of that, if you can, that would be great because then that would give you content to include in your personal statement. I would then also make sure that when you're writing your personal statement, every experience that you include within your statement, that you're making sure to link that back to the course that you are applying for. And start researching your course using the resources that I mentioned. It could be YouTube, it could be any books that you've researched. That all goes to helping you understand more about that course and having content to include in your personal statement. Thank you so much for watching. And if this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tips and university application advice. Drop any questions you have at all in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.